Imagine this. You're sitting across from her. Candlelight flickers, laughter spills from her lips, and her gaze wraps around your ego like silk. She knows how to make you feel seen, like you're the only man in the room. But weeks later, something cracks. That warmth becomes icy. Her praise turns to passive scorn, and the bond you thought was real begins to corrode. You question yourself. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe it's your fault. Or maybe the woman you admired is wearing a mask. Now ask yourself this. What if the most dangerous manipulator isn't the loud one, but the one who knows how to be adored? What if charm isn't always a gift, but a weapon? And what if love, in the hands of the wrong person, becomes a mirror maze that shatters everything you thought you knew about truth, loyalty, and identity? The most seductive illusion in a narcissistic woman's arsenal is not her beauty. It's her ability to distort reality. She doesn't scream. She doesn't chase. She doesn't even need to lie directly. Instead, she bends your perception softly, slowly, until up feels like down, and your self-worth is tied to her ever-shifting approval. Now here's the paradox. The very traits society teaches men to desire, confidence, independence, emotional expressiveness, are the same traits that, when twisted by narcissism, become psychological traps. How can you tell the difference between a self-assured woman and a narcissistic one? Between authentic power and pathological control? Men are often taught to be strong, to ignore their instincts, to push through discomfort in relationships. But what if your discomfort is a warning bell? What if being a real man doesn't mean tolerating emotional toxicity, but escaping it? See, narcissism in women is rarely talked about. Why? Because the cultural narrative paints women as nurturers, victims, empathic beings. But what happens when empathy becomes performance? When victimhood becomes leverage? When seduction becomes a tool not for connection, but domination? Narcissistic women don't always look like villains. They don't storm into your life with chaos. They flow in like water. They know how to become exactly what you need, only to take it away once you're hooked. Their wounds become sacred. Their flaws, your responsibility. And before you even realize it, your emotional landscape becomes a war zone, where the enemy wears your lover's smile. So why does this matter? Because too many men are suffering in silence, ashamed to admit they're being manipulated, gaslit, and emotionally drained. They confuse endurance for strength. They rationalize abuse as passion, and they call the cage they're in commitment. But here's the brutal truth. Narcissistic traits in women are real, and they are growing, fueled by social media, wounded egos, and a culture that rewards surface over substance. These traits don't just break hearts. They distort a man's perception of love, loyalty, and his own worth. So we must ask the deeper question. What makes a woman, or anyone, embrace narcissism as a way of life? Is it insecurity? A survival mechanism? A response to a broken culture? And more urgently, how can you recognize these traits before they destroy your sense of self? Because if you don't, you may spend years chasing someone who was never truly there, loving a shadow, sacrificing your peace, and calling it destiny. This is not about blame. It's about awakening. This is not a witch hunt. It's a mirror. And in that mirror, men must learn to see clearly, not just the woman in front of them, but the unconscious forces that bind them to her. So now we begin. We will name the darkness. We will bring it into the light. And by the end of this journey, you will see not only them, but yourself more clearly than ever before. Now, let's begin the descent. Coming up next, number 1, the overinflated sense of entitlement, and 14 other traits that reveal the narcissistic patterns. Every man must understand before it's too late. Number 1. The overinflated sense of entitlement. She believes she deserves more just because. More attention, more gifts, more praise, more devotion. Not because she's earned it through mutual respect, but because she sees herself as above the rules. You'll notice it in her expectations. Dinner must be perfect. Your responses must be instant. And your world must revolve around her moods. When you push back, you're selfish. Her entitlement isn't loud. It's laced with subtle, unrelenting demands that slowly erode your boundaries. Number 2, the weaponization of vulnerability. She cries, not always because she's hurt, but because it works. She shares her wounds like ammunition. Every pain she's ever experienced becomes a reason why she should never be questioned, challenged, or held accountable. Her past becomes your prison, and if you ever show pain of your own, it's ignored or minimized because in her world, only her suffering matters. She doesn't empathize, she performs empathy to manipulate. Number 3, constant need for admiration. She doesn't just like compliments, she feeds on them. Social media becomes her stage. Every post is a carefully curated cry for validation. Every outfit a test, every silence from you a threat. If you stop admiring her, she punishes you emotionally, sexually, or through withdrawal. Love, to her, is not about connection, it's about applause. And if the audience stops clapping, she finds another one. Number 4, disdain for accountability. She will never, ever be wrong. If she lies, it's your fault for not trusting her. If she hurts you, it's because you triggered her. If the relationship fails, it's because you couldn't handle her realness. She twists narratives like a playwright, always, casting herself as the misunderstood heroine. Apologies, if they happen, are performances, never genuine acts of humility. Number 5, subtle gaslighting. It doesn't always come as overt denial. It's more elegant than that. She'll question your memory, your emotions, your reactions. Why are you so sensitive? That never happened like that. You're imagining things. Over time, you begin to doubt yourself. Reality becomes a fog, and she stands at the center, whispering a version of truth that always protects her ego. Number 6, chronic comparison. You are never quite enough because someone else is always doing more, giving more, being more. She compares you to her ex, her friend's husband, the guy on Instagram, and somehow you always fall short. But here's the twist, the comparison isn't to elevate them, it's to keep you insecure. Because if you feel small, you'll work harder to win her approval, and that gives her control. Number 7, triangulation. She creates drama by pulling others into your intimate space. She'll flirt with someone just to make you jealous. She'll mention how someone else desires her just to see your reaction. Or she'll talk about how much someone else understands her, especially when you're not giving her what she wants. She keeps you competing. She never chooses peace, because peace doesn't make her feel powerful. Number 8, manipulative independence. She boasts that she doesn't need a man, but somehow, you always end up doing everything for her. Her version of independence is selective. It's used to shut down emotional intimacy, to justify selfishness, or to dodge commitment. But when responsibility arises, suddenly, you're expected to show up, pay up, and step up. Independence becomes a shield, not a virtue. Number 9, image obsession. She cares deeply, too deeply, about how she appears to others, whether it's beauty, status, or perceived morality. She curates her persona like a brand. Every post is a projection, every word rehearsed. But the image hides a hollow core. And if you ever threaten that image, by exposing truth, expressing dissatisfaction, or walking away. She responds with rage or revenge. Her ego is made of glass, and your honesty becomes the stone. There's a reason these narcissistic traits feel so familiar. They aren't random. They aren't just bad personalities or toxic behavior. They are symptoms, visible cracks in a much deeper fracture. A fracture inside the individual psyche, yes, but also a rupture in our collective soul as a society. So let's go deeper. What if the woman you encountered wasn't born this way, but shaped, sculpted by pain, reinforced by reward, conditioned by a culture that taught her to be seen, but not seen into, loved, but not understood, desired, but never truly known? Carl Jung once said, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you." What happens when a woman, abandoned by authenticity, begins to build her identity from the outside in? She becomes what she believes the world wants. Perfect, powerful, praiseworthy, but inside empty, fragmented, at war with herself. And this is where narcissism begins, not as arrogance, but as armor. It's not confidence, it's camouflage. Let's talk psychology. According to the theory of narcissistic development, many narcissistic traits originate in childhood emotional wounds. These wounds often come from two opposite extremes: excessive idealization, being praised as special without earning it; emotional neglect or invalidation, not being truly seen or valued for who they are. In both cases, the child develops a false self, a carefully constructed persona, designed to win love or survive abandonment. Over time, this false self replaces the authentic one. The result? An adult who cannot tolerate vulnerability, because to be vulnerable is to risk annihilation. So when a narcissistic woman demands admiration, she's not feeding ego, she's feeding identity. When she controls, it's not about power, it's about stability. When she gaslights, it's not because she's cruel, it's because the truth would collapse the fragile world she's built. But this doesn't excuse the harm, it explains it. And if we don't understand the roots, we'll keep chopping branches and wondering why the tree never dies. Now enter society. We live in an age of mirrors, not windows. Social media rewards appearance, not authenticity. Self-worth is now tied to visibility, to likes, follows, validation loops. Women are praised for beauty before they can speak, taught to perform, not to process, taught to brand themselves, not to build themselves. And behind every filtered photo lies a deeper filter, the filter of psychological disconnection. Nietzsche warned us, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." In other words, even self-hate can become a form of power. Narcissistic women may loathe who they are, yet take pride in that loathing. They shape it into identity, into victimhood, into superiority masked as suffering. This is the philosophy of the fractured self. I hurt, therefore I matter. Therefore I must dominate before I am dominated. Arthur Schopenhauer, in his brutal clarity, described human existence as a cycle of endless striving and dissatisfaction. The narcissistic woman is caught in this cycle, reaching for praise, status, perfection, yet never satisfied. Her hunger is existential. It is not about others. It's about escaping the terror of her own insignificance. And here's the darkest twist. Society rewards these traits. It uplifts narcissistic femininity because it is marketable, profitable, easy to package and sell. It's the influencer model, the empowerment illusion, the "you go girl" mantra that encourages validation seeking, not self-awareness. This is not feminism. This is consumer narcissism disguised as empowerment. So what does this do to men? Men become props, mirrors, emotional dumping grounds. You're expected to hold space, never break. Provide, but don't ask. Be stable, even as she self-destructs. And when you collapse from emotional exhaustion, you're told you're weak, that you failed her. Jean-Paul Sartre called it bad faith, living in denial of our freedom by playing roles. Men play the role of the savior. Women play the role of the wounded queen. But no one plays themselves. And here lies the core tragedy. No one is truly connecting. Everyone is performing. The narcissistic woman doesn't see you. Not really. She sees what you can give her. Your attention, your energy, your reassurance, your stability. And when you stop performing, she panics, not because she loves you, but because she's losing her mirror. You're not a person. You're a reflection. And here's where Viktor Frankl's wisdom becomes essential. He wrote, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure." The narcissistic pattern is this: chasing stimulation to fill the void of purpose, chasing validation to mask the fear of insignificance. But validation is not love. Performance is not connection. An illusion is not truth. So now, you face a choice. Do you continue accepting these patterns just because they feel familiar? Do you keep sacrificing yourself to hold together someone else's fragile ego? Do you keep chasing a woman who doesn't love you, only the role you play? Or do you dare to break the cycle? In the next part, we'll examine how these traits shape not just relationships, but reality itself. We'll explore how culture, cognition, and conditioning blind us to truth, and how to see through the fog. Are you ready to see what most never dare to look at? Then keep going. You thought it was just a bad relationship. You thought walking away would be the end. But weeks pass, then months, and something strange begins to happen. You're no longer sure of what's real. You hesitate before you speak. You second-guess your memories. You flinch at emotional intimacy, even when it's safe. You're free, but something in you still feels owned. This is the unseen consequence. Not the breakup, not the heartbreak, but the slow erosion of your inner compass. When you've spent months or years with a narcissistic woman, what you lose is more than peace. You lose the ability to trust your own mind. Because she didn't just manipulate you, she rewired you. The brain is battlefield. Let's get scientific for a moment. Your brain runs on patterns, neural pathways reinforced by repeated experiences. When you're repeatedly rewarded for submission, punished for honesty, and gaslit for emotional responses, your brain adapts. It prunes away healthy instincts and strengthens survival responses. Cognitive dissonance becomes your norm. You learn to live in contradiction. She loves me, but I feel invisible. She's just emotional, but I'm always anxious. I'm strong, but why do I feel weak around her? Your fight or flight system never fully turns off. You live in a state of hypervigilance, anticipating her moods, analyzing her tone, interpreting her silences. Even after she's gone, your body doesn't forget. This is trauma bonding, a biochemical addiction, formed by the cycle of reward and abuse. Dopamine from her praise, cortisol from her punishment. And because the cycle was unpredictable, your brain clings to the hope that the next interaction might be different. You're not in love. You're in withdrawal, the loss of the masculine core. But it goes deeper. A narcissistic woman doesn't just distort your thoughts. She emasculates your essence, your masculine identity, not through dominance, but through subtle inversion. She becomes the center, the judge, the reality maker, and you become the responder, the appeaser, the emotional janitor. Your direction, your mission, your self-authority, all slowly dissolve. You were once decisive, focused, grounded. Now you're anxious, reactive, disoriented. You're no longer leading your life. You're just managing hers. This is not accidental. In a twisted sense, she needs you to shrink so that she can feel bigger. But the cost is your very being. Nietzsche said, "Beware that, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. For when you gaze long into the abyss gazes also into you. You stared too long into her chaos, and now it lives in you." Cultural delusion, why no one believes you. And here's the part no one warns you about. When you finally speak out, no one believes you. Not your friends, not your therapist, because the cultural narrative doesn't support your truth. Women are victims. Men are abusers. That's the story we're told. So when you say, "She manipulated me," people flinch. When you say, "She gaslit me," they smirk. When you say, "I was emotionally abused," they wonder if you're just bitter, weak, or exaggerating. You become the invisible victim. And that's the cruelest consequence of all. Your pain becomes socially unacceptable. So you suppress it. You question it. You silence yourself. And the silence metastasizes into shame. Societal reinforcement of the narcissistic archetype. Meanwhile, she thrives. Society rewards her behavior with likes, praise, and emotional indulgence. The narcissistic woman is the icon of modern culture. She's in the influencer with 500,000 followers. She's in the dating apps, writing bios like, "Don't waste my time," or "Treat me like a queen." She's the boss babe, the spiritual healer, the trauma-informed narcissist with a victimhood crown. Her toxicity is dressed in empowerment. Her manipulation is called boundaries. Her selfishness, self-love. We've rebranded narcissism as growth. We've turned dysfunction into lifestyle. And so, the cycle continues. The inner collapse of the next man she meets. And here's what makes this dangerous. She will repeat this with someone else. The next man won't see it coming. He'll fall for her depth, her intensity, her confidence. And slowly, quietly, she'll start draining him until he becomes a shell of the man he was. She doesn't do this consciously. She doesn't wake up and say, "I will destroy someone's spirit today." No, she's blind to her impact. But her blindness doesn't make her harmless. It makes her more dangerous. Because when someone believes they can do no wrong, they are incapable of growth. And when someone refuses to see the wreckage they leave behind, they will keep crashing into every life they touch. You start mirroring her darkness. This is the final consequence, and it's the one few admit. You start becoming like her. You develop defense mechanisms. You detach emotionally. You withhold love. You become hypercritical. You manipulate, even subtly, to protect yourself. You lose your innocence, not your sexual innocence, but your emotional purity. You no longer trust freely. You no longer give freely. You love with caution. You connect with suspicion. The narcissist didn't just break your heart. She poisoned your capacity for intimacy. And if you're not careful, you'll bring that poison into your next relationship. So where does this leave you? At the edge. At the point where most men give up or wake up. Because what comes next is not healing. Not yet. What comes next is the truth. The truth that breaks the illusion. The truth that dissolves the fantasy. The truth that burns away everything false, so something real can grow. In the next section, we will go deeper than we've gone yet. We'll confront the ultimate truth, the realization that rewrites your entire story. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it. You'll rise, not as a wounded man, but as a man who finally understands. It always ends in silence. Not the loud kind, the kind that echoes inside your ribcage. The kind that comes not from her leaving, but from you finally seeing. And what you see is not her. It's you. Not the version she shaped. Not the mask you wore. Not the role you played. But the man who endured it all. Who stood in the fire, broke, wept, shattered, and still breathes. You see, The ultimate truth isn't about narcissistic women. It was never about them. It was about the part of you that allowed it, that stayed, that gave, that bent until you barely recognized your own reflection. Here is the final, most powerful realization. The narcissist did not steal your power. You gave it away because you didn't know it belonged to you in the first place. Let that sink in, because this is not about blame. This is about awakening. You were not foolish. You were unconscious. You didn't choose suffering. You chose hope. Hope that love could heal her. Hope that endurance would earn peace. Hope that your loyalty would be enough. But hope, in the hands of someone emotionally wounded, becomes a leash. And so, you lived on scraps, waiting for a version of her that never existed, fighting for moments of clarity just to feel sane, turning your back on your own intuition to keep the illusion alive. And now, with that illusion gone, you are left with truth. And truth, when it lands, is not comforting. It is devastating. But it is also the beginning of everything real. The mirror of the narcissist. She wasn't just a tormentor. She was a mirror, a brutal, sacred mirror, showing you where you abandoned yourself, where you traded authenticity for attachment, where you silenced your truth to maintain connection. Her manipulation only worked because a part of you needed her to choose you. But why? That's where the real work begins. Carl Jung wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." You faced her because it was easier than facing yourself, easier than confronting your childhood wounds, your unmet needs, your hidden insecurities. You thought you were rescuing her, but deep down, you were trying to rescue the boy inside you who never felt enough. And when that boy met a woman who mirrored his mother's neglect, or his first heartbreak, or his early shame, he called it love, because to him, pain felt like home. But you are not that boy anymore. The awakening of the masculine. This journey, this crucifixion of the soul, is not a curse. It is a rite of passage. Every man who has walked through the fire of narcissistic abuse and come out the other side knows this. You cannot be initiated into your full masculine power until you've faced the darkness of false love. Because false love teaches you what true love is not. It burns away your illusions. It forces you to choose yourself, not with ego, not with arrogance, but with truth. And truth is masculine. It is the sword that cuts through deception, the spine that stands tall when others collapse, the voice that says, "No more," not because you hate her, but because you finally love you. The power of sacred boundaries. So what now? You begin again, but not as the same man. This time, you build with boundaries. Not walls, but gates. You open when it's safe. You close when it's not. You speak with clarity. You act with integrity. You protect your energy like it is gold, because now you know it is. You don't chase broken people. You don't explain your worth. You don't confuse chaos with chemistry. You seek wholeness, and that begins within. The spiritual completion. Now step back and look again. That relationship that almost destroyed you, it was your initiation into self-awareness, into sovereignty, into spiritual maturity. You were not a victim. You were a student of life's harshest teacher. And now, you graduate with scars that shine like armor, with wisdom carved into your nervous system, with a voice that no longer shakes when it speaks the truth. And one day, when you meet someone new, you will recognize the difference. You will no longer be seduced by performance. You will feel the quiet hum of authenticity, and you will know. This is what love is supposed to feel like. Not intensity, not obsession, but peace. A final word. If this journey hurt you, let it also remake you. If this story was yours, let it end here. Not with bitterness, not with blame, but with power. You now know the 15 traits. You know the roots. You know the damage. And now, you know the truth. So the only question left is this: what will you do with it? Because healing is not forgetting what happened. It's becoming the person it could never happen to again. Choose you. Every day, in every decision, in every relationship. And one day, you'll look back, not with regret, but with reverence, for the man you became in the ruins of who you used to be.